Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And today we're diving back into Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This time we're looking at the monk subclasses.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
In the description, you can find, as always, the link to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. That's an Amazon affiliate link, of course. And if you go buy through that link, you'll be supporting the channel. Thank you.
We're diving back into Xanathar, as Dave said. We're talking classes. We're looking at the monk.
We are looking at the monk. So we get three archetypes, or I should say
Subclasses.
Subclasses, and in this case monk traditions. We get the Drunken Master, we get the Kensei, and we get the Laser Monk.
The Sun Soul.
Oh, right, Sun Soul.
Alright, but before we get into that, we have, as always, there's these little tidbits to help flesh out your character a little bit more. There's typically been 3 charts that you can use as either, hey, here's a roll to see what's going on with my character and build him out, or as inspiration to build your own. So we start off with, where were you trained? What kind of monastery did you have?
And that's really just, essentially, it is literally about the building and kind of where it was.
Right. So whether you're built inside a volcanic system of hot springs and geysers, or in the branches of an immense tree deep within the Feywild, there's options to really get into that.
The last one, I really like the last one. Except for, like, in my mind, I had an addendum.
The monastery was carved from an iceberg on the frozen reaches of the world.
In my mind, that iceberg floats. It's in the sea.
Yeah, I kind of dug that one as well. So, like, the ground is completely, frozen. The walls are frozen. So, like, it's cold all the time. I think that would add to the elements of the training of a monk.
I think so, too. But I also, like, on Facebook and stuff, you'll see, like, video of, like, you ever seen that ice hotel, and there's an ice bar and things like that. They look really cool, so it would look pretty cool. It might also kind of speak to what kind of monks are going to come out of there if you decide to go with something a bit unusual.
I'm guessing not the Sun Soul.
Probably not the Sun Soul. Although, snow and ice has the ability to reflect a lot of light and sunlight.
That's true, but it also melts.
It does melt. Well, you do radiant damage, not fire damage.
6 of 1. All right, so the next thing is you've got your, monastic icon. So what kind of sigil or, what kind of visual thing is there about your order? And it goes into different options, whether it be monkey or dragon turtle or Chiron, owlbear, hydra, dragon.
Do you have a big black dragon branded on your chest or not? Or, like, even if you go with the old Kung Fu TV series, at the end of his test, he has to move the giant urn that's full of hot coals, and and they pick it up with their forearms and they get the brands, and he ends up with the dragon and the tiger.
Yeah, so that was the one thing that they didn't get into is tattoos, branding, that kind of stuff, which I think harkens back to some more old school thought, and I would have liked to have seen that as a kind of imagery as well.
Maybe. I think you're thinking of the Yakuza, but So we also have Master.
Yeah, so this is who trained you.
Very simple, Was he a tyrant? Did he betray you guys? Was he a nice guy? Did he die? Things like that. So they're all, as always, these things are just to add flavor and hopefully inspire you when you're making your player character, and to make them a little bit more interesting, a little more rich in detail.
So then we get into the actual traditions. We start off with the Way of the Drunken Master.
The Way of the Drunken Master is really good. I played this. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've actually had a chance to actually run this character in my Spelljammer game that we ran, and you were pretty happy with what's here.
I was ridiculous playing that character, let me tell you. Oh no, I don't mean the abilities or anything. I'm just a ridiculous player. Luckily, I'm not there ruining your games, just Ted's.
So we start off with the bonus proficiencies. You get the performance skill if you don't already have it. Your martial arts mixes combat training with the precision of a dancer and the antics of a jester. You also gain proficiency with the brewer supplies if you don't have it.
Now, previously, this was all lumped together with this ability and the next ability, and you did not get brewer's tools. So, slight change.
So Drunken Technique, you learn how to twist and turn as quickly as part of your flurry of blows, Whenever you do so, you gain the benefits of this engaged action, and your walking speed increases by 10 feet until the end of the turn. Utterly ridiculous with the monk to get that extra 10 feet that you're already going faster than everybody else, but now you're going to get to disengage for free and move more.
We have to use Flurry of Blows, though, so it costs Kai points. But that being said, I used it every round that I was in combat in Ted's game. Never was near an enemy, pretty much. That part was a lot of fun, I have to admit.
Now, it does, if you've seen any of the old Kung Fu movies with the Drunken Master, it's definitely fitting with the style of them in and out of combat, so easily. So it fits. To me, it's like, all right, they already move so much.
I know. Why must you give them more? Imagine the mobile feat, or if you're a tabaxi, or any number of ways to make this even more ridiculous.
Yes.
Now, I did run the Drunken Styles by the Kung Fu Master I do know in real life, and he says they are good. He agrees.
Okay. So Tipsy Sway at 6th level. You can move in sudden swaying leaps, and you gain the following benefits. Leap to your feet. When you're prone, you can stand for 5 feet rather than half your movement, and redirect attack. If somebody misses you with an attack, you can spend a Kai point to have it hit somebody within 5 feet.
Which is pretty cool. That too.
which is fun. I love that ability of anything. In combat, to have somebody attack you and the attack winds up going into one of their friends instead.
And matter of fact, even the leap to your feet, I used that in your game. Just because my character would literally be on his back, kind of like spinning around on his shell, drinking all the time. And Ted's like, "Oh, half your movement to get up." I'm like, "No, no, it's not." Son of a... this one, there's some changes here. Before, you did not get leap to your feet, so that was added, which is really cool. I like that. I think it's thematic and goes with it. Also, it used to be rest dependent instead of costing Kai points. So I like that. I like that it costs Kai points. So one of the dangers of the Drunken Monk, and I will say this, is you will burn through Kai points fast. I know I did. We're 10th level. I had 10 of them, and it did get to the point where I was counting them off, going, "All right, well, I can't do this anymore. Can't do that anymore." Because between all your regular monk abilities and the cool drunken abilities, it's just easy to spend them.
They flow like rain.
They do.
So
Gonna make it rain key points on you.
So at 11th level, you get Drunkard's Luck. When you make an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw, and have disadvantage, you can spend 2 Kai points to get rid of the disadvantage.
Now, I don't know how this one played out. We only played 10th level. And I apologize. We keep saying Kai instead of Ki or Chi. We know it's actually said that way. We're old grognards and refuse to adapt. This one there's some changes here. There's some things that happen. Completely changed. Used to spend 1 Kai point to get advantage on a saving throw. Had to declare before roll.
So that's a vastly different ability.
Yes, it is. That completely changed. So I had to think about it for a minute. What did I write? What did I even type? Are we even looking at the right book?
All right, so 17th level, Intoxicating Frenzy.
Oh my god, this ability is amazing.
At 17th level, you gain the ability to make an overwhelming number of attacks against a group of enemies. So when you do your flurry of blows, you can get up to 5 attacks as long as they're going against a different number, as long as they're each going to a different enemy.
Now that is for a total of 7 in the round. Because you still get your 2 normal attacks. That being said, you could unload 2 attacks on 2 opponents and the rest on, individuals, or, 3 attacks on 1, but you're still limited by, you need a lot of opponents to hit. It's not really overpowering if you think about it, because you're not going to do a ton of damage. You're just going to get a lot of touches, and you're going to get the party started. So that brings us to Kensei.
So now, it's been a while, but I actually did play a Kensei way back, not way back, but, a while ago, we played a game that was 20th level. Actually, it was technically 40th level, but was 20 in 2 different classes, and I got to, pick Monk Kensei, and...
So you used the Unearthed Arcana version?
Yes. Actually, my other class was, Immortal.
So they were both
they were both in Unearthed Arcana. Some of those things really do stack up pretty well together. Path of the Kensei, when you choose this tradition at 3rd level, Your special martial arts training leads you to master the use of certain weapons. The path includes instructions to death strokes of calligraphy or painting. You gain the following benefits. So you basically get to choose weapons that, for you, are Kensei weapons. So at third level, you pick two of them. They have to be a simple or martial weapon that lacks the heavy and special properties. And for you, boom, they're Kensei weapons. At 6th, 11th, and 17th, you get another weapon choice that you can then add as a monk weapon for you, or a Kensei weapon for you.
There's one exception, and that's the longbow. I believe the longbow has the heavy property, but you can still take that as a Kensei weapon.
Correct. You can choose agile parry. If you make an unarmed strike as part of the attack action on your turn, and you are holding a Kensei weapon, you can use it to defend yourself. So basically, you get a +2 to AC until the start of your next turn. As a Kensei shot, you can use a bonus action on your turn to make range attacks with a Kensei weapon. When you do so, any target you hit with a range attack using a Kensei weapon takes an extra D4 damage of the weapon's type. You retain this benefit until the end of the current turn. And the Way of the Brush, you gain proficiency with your choice of calligrapher supplies or painter supplies.
All right, so there's a lot of things that are going on here. Things have changed. So before, you did not get the Way of the Brush. That wasn't part of it, so you didn't get the calligraphy tools. And the way it actually worked was actually different as well. You only got to choose 3 weapons, and they had to be they were 3 martial weapons. And instead of now where it's 1 melee, 1 ranged. Also now you also get more over time, which is really cool. Before they weren't considered monk weapons, and now they are. It was worded very specifically. Like before, you could use dex or strength. They weren't monk weapons, but you could choose to substitute your martial arts damage for the weapon damage. Now they just straight up changed it to these are martial arts weapons. However that works, it's going to work for you. I kind of like those changes. And the agile parry, before it wasn't tied to a melee weapon. Kensei shot, before it wasn't tied to a ranged weapon. So those things are changed. And the cool thing about these abilities too is with that Kensei shot, I feel like we're getting a path to the Zen Archer monk.
That totally works for me. I like the change of adding in the tool proficiencies. It doesn't do anything to unbalance the character, and it totally fits the theme of what this character is.
Yeah, I mean, it adds some depth.
6th level, 1 with the blade. Beyond getting an additional Kensei weapon, you extend your Kai points into your Kensei weapon, granting you the following benefits. Becomes magical. Your Kensei weapon becomes magical for the purposes of overcoming resistance and immunity. Death Strike, when you hit a target with a Kensei weapon, you can spend a Kai point to deal extra damage equal to your martial arts die. You can use this feature only once on each of your turns.
So before, 1 with the blade, Kensei magic weapons, the same. Death Strike, new ability, used to be Precise Strike and let you use double your proficiency bonus to attack a creature. Bonus action to activate 1 attack, and a short long rest mechanic to recharge it. So completely different.
Sharpen the blade. I remember this specific ability because I know I used it in conjunction with the Immortal. At 11th level, you gain the ability to augment your weapons further with your ki. As a bonus action, you can expend up to 3 Kai points to grant 1 Kensei weapon you touch with a bonus to attack and damage rolls when you attack with it. The bonus equals the number of Kai points you spent. The bonus lasts for 1 minute or until you use this feature again. The feature has no effect on a magic weapon that already has a bonus to attack and damage rolls.
This one, they cleaned up the language on it a lot, and then they made a minor change that makes a big deal. Before before it didn't state magic items, magic weapons or not. Now it calls it out. It won't work with a magic weapon. So, if you already have one, this ability is not going to be very useful to you.
Correct. So getting this at 11th level, it does seem, kind of harsh. But, I suppose you're fighting with 2 weapons, well, this one's magical, this one's not. I can bump it.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would have liked to see with that is for you to have the ability to spend up to 3 Kai points and get that bonus, but it would, it wouldn't be added to, it would supersede whatever the weapon already did. But, I guess they didn't want you, now I'm going to use my greatsword, my flaming greatsword, and make it a +3 weapon. But it's part of their ability suite, so I don't think it's that big a deal.
Well, that's what Homebrew is for.
House rules all the way.
So, unerring accuracy at 17 level. Your master weapon grants you an extraordinary accuracy. If you miss with an attack roll using a monk weapon on your turn, you can re-roll it. You can use this feature only once on each of your turns.
All right, this is the same. This is like it's a useful ability, but it's kind of boring.
It's useful, except that, I mean, you call it boring, but it's incredibly useful. To be able to every turn be able to, like, oh, I can take that miss and potentially turn it back into a hit.
Like this is going to come up more often than probably getting up to 5 unarmed attacks. But getting going that I can go up to get an extra, like 3 extra unarmed attacks seems a lot more fun to me. And the wording here is really important too, because the way it's worded is, oh, on one of your attacks you miss, well, you can re-roll it. Well, then you could also re-roll it with advantage if you wanted to. So it does open that up so that you can actually go for basically the superior advantage attempt. If you get a bad roll again, you can use inspiration or something.
So that is actually something that's really cool to point that out, because I didn't think about it, that you're re-rolling the attack. So if you were rolling with advantage, you're still going to roll with advantage. If you're using lucky or inspiration or that kind of stuff, you can then get the roll. So I like it.
Yeah, it definitely works. So with that brings us to Way of the Sun Soul, and we don't need our cheat sheet anymore. This thing is actually useless.
So kind of compared it to what's in the Skag, and that's already an official product that's out there. And word for word, it's what's there, unless I miss something. But
I don't remember if we got that one in Unearthed Arcana prior to getting into the Skag or not.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is if we've talked about it as Unearthed Arcana, we've talked about it as Skag's Sword Coast Adventures Guide. My son has actually ran one in my Spelljammer game. We affectionately refer to this, or at least I do, as the Laser Monk, because they get to do radiant damage. Like they can make ranged attacks with their flurry of blows and their regular attacks,
pew, 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 pew.
where they shoot out radiant damage. Later on, they get a radiant fireball that affects Constitution instead of Dexterity. So it's kind of cool. They're interesting. It's definitely a fun addition. I guess this is the first reprint we're seeing from the Sword Coast Adventure and Xanathar's. There are a couple more in here, and the rationale that they gave the rationale of several things. One is it helps affect the organized play because it's PHB +1. So now if you want to use the Player's Handbook and Xanathar's, you could, and still grab something that was possibly in Sword Coast Adventure before because it was reprinted. That was one of the thoughts, and the other one was, well, this is a more generic character or subclass or feature or something, and it isn't really just native to the Forgotten Realms, so it makes sense for us to make it available elsewhere. So you don't have to get all the Forgotten Realms lore. If you don't want to, you can just get the Sword Coast Adventure. You skip the Sword Coast Adventures Guide and get Xanathar's Guide to everything.
All right, so now the last thing that we touch on is how to use these guys as villainous options for the DM.
All right. Drunken Master. We saw a great example of a Drunken Master in season 1 of Netflix, Iron Fist.
And it was, Iron Fist is the hero, so clearly that guy is the villain.
Right. Yeah. So, in that case, he was kind of the gatekeeper, right? He was a guardian, and Danny Rand had to go against him and beat him in order to progress through what he was doing, and he was a Drunken Master. I actually feel like the way they used their Drunken Master is a good way to use it. Especially like if you go through any of like the old Kung Fu movies, or think about even like the Game of Death where Bruce Lee had to go through the different levels, you could take any one of those guys and replace them with a Drunken Master. So or even as a contest or challenge, maybe not even evil per se or bad guy, but adversary that you have to overcome because he's tasked with guarding his sacred location, object, something the players need, and he doesn't really care why you need it or what you're trying to do with it. The rules are he has to guard it, so you have to get past him.
So I would want to use this guy as, you could do the stereotypical, all right, the guy's there as a drunkard, and surprise, he's a master, and he's going to kick your butt.
So you're saying you would use him as Murder Hobo Bane?
No.
Okay.
What,
I was going. I thought you were going with, like, he's the drunken guy that's annoying the party, and they're murder hobos, so they're gonna do a murder hobos do. But surprise, sucker! Wooga!
well, you could absolutely go down that road, and it would be hilarious to turn it around on the party. But what I was thinking is you could have this guy be that guardian, but he seems on the up and up. But he issues an unwritten challenge. Like they you convince the party that they've got to beat him in a drinking contest in order to get by him, and you give them levels of intoxication, and then he's got no problems with it because he's always drunk, and then the fight happens, and they're coming into it with penalties.
And if you happen to be a patron of Nerdarchy from way back when, you already have rules for intoxication. That was one of our rewards.
So that's one of the things that I would like to do, is just adding an extra layer to that challenge of the party being drunk, and maybe your players will really get into it and make poor decisions because they're drunk. Characters make poor decisions because they're drunk.
Now Ted's got you. You have to get all your players absolutely drunk before you can run this encounter.
Well, there was a talk a while ago about me running the game for the drunk players. Hasn't happened yet.
So next, that brings us to the Kensei.
Now the Kensei I think is a little bit harder to fit because this guy seems to be more the weapons master. He cares about painting or calligraphy. So like I see this guy as a little bit more prim and proper. Harder for me to just be like, yes, let's insert this guy.
Well, yes and no. Like, I think we talked about the samurai that's kind of a dick that kind of goes around challenging people. Like, I definitely could see this. And the thing, too, is that it's kind of like a common trope in that wire fu style, like, kung fu movies and things like that. So it was kind of a common trope that you would have these masters go around and they always want to challenge and prove they're the best. So that kind of works. I definitely could see him as a henchman or bodyguard, or even like think about Zach Nafian from from the Homeland series, from the Dritz novels. He could easily fall into that role but maybe in this case he isn't the reluctant villain, he is the villain. And matter of fact, Dritz Duerden had to face a weapon master from a rival house who was the weapon master. So there's definitely ways you could insert this.
Yeah, so you get him as into a political game. I think definitely there's ways to insert that in there. So it doesn't have to be I'm all about the good. So I'm about the weapon and training. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Even if you look at Game of Thrones, the Water Dancer, right? He could technically be the Kensei.
Oh, absolutely.
And fit that role. Now, he wasn't the bad guy. The bad guys were the bad guys, and he was the good guy, and he lost, so that makes him the bad guy. No. In an evil campaign.
I think everyone there's the bad guy.
But my point is, like, these are different ways to insert this type of character. He is probably a henchman. He probably works for the bad guys, more than likely, as being the big bad. Just because it's not because he couldn't be, but because I see this as a person is dedicated to his craft and his art, and like that other stuff is beneath him because he just wants to master weapons.
Right. Lastly, we have the Sun Soul, the laser monk, if you will, and I think this is the kind of character that when you've got players who have gone little off the rails, this guy is a radiant champion. Literally, he glows with power. So, like, this guy could come down, possibly with a group of paladins to wreck some shite on characters who are not toting the line, are not doing what they're supposed to. It's
sometimes you just have to unleash Bruce Leroy.
Failing that, maybe you want to use one of these guys, but your players are good people. Well, what if they have to prove themselves at some point in time to a divine being, and this is the champion who stands between them and their next path, and it's like I'm not going to make this easy for you. Pew pew pew.
Yeah, see, I thought this was the hard one, to be honest with you. Like the Kensei to me seemed a lot easier than this guy. But you kind of got me thinking, and this goes like across the board for monks where they could be adversaries without being the villain or the bad guy, where they stand between the players and their objective, just because they're tasked to do a thing. And monks tend to be lawful and hold to their tradition and their order. I can definitely see this guy as someone who is a guardian of a monastery or a temple, or maybe there's a passage of right that at the end you have to face one of these guys, and maybe the players have to like beseech the heads of this monastery to allow them to go through the passage of right, even though they're not members. And when they do, like this is the final culmination of it, where like in the beginning it's like puzzles, quizzes, and running through various obstacles, and then they finally get to the end of the gauntlet and they have to get past this guy.
So it makes it pretty easy. You can do that with any kind of monk, but with this one specifically, it's pretty easy to be like, all right, well, here it is. He's the guy in the gateway. You got to get past him.
So the question is, guys, what do you think? We got a place for it. It's called the comments. Let us know. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Facebook.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.